What is forgery? Forgery involves the making, altering, use, or possession of a false writing in order to commit a fraud. It can also occur in many forms, from signing another person's name on a check to falsifying one's own academic transcript. Forgery is a very serious offense, and there are several factors when it comes to forgery. The first element of forgery is that a person must make, alter, use, or possess a false writing. When they think of forgery, many people think only of making false writings, such as forging letters or certificates. But altering an existing writing can also be forgery if the alteration is material or affects a legal right. Forging another person's signature on a document is a material alteration because it misrepresents the identity of the person who signed the document, which has serious legal consequences. To be considered as false, the writing itself must be fabricated or materially altered so that it purports to be or represent something that it is actually not. Generally, simply inserting false statements into a writing is not enough to meet this requirement if those misinterpretations do not change the fundamental meaning of the writing itself. For example, if you were to insert a false statement into a letter you wrote, you have not committed forgery. However, it is forgery if you write a letter of legal significance but present it as a letter written by someone else. For example, letters of recommendation or notes from physicians may also be subjects of forgery. This tends to happen a lot, especially in educational places where students tend to forge letters in order to present it to their educators. A document need not necessarily be a legal or government issued document. There are three types of forgery, which are blind forgery, simulated forgery, and also trace forgery. Blind forgery means that these signatures have little to no resemblance to their customer's actual signature because of the forger that does not have any access to the signature to make it as a reference. Simulated forgery means generating a signature by referring to the original signature which has intentions of being forged by the forger. Traced forgery, on the other hand, means copying over a genuine signature which has been attained by the forger in order to make sure that the signature that they are trying to copy is at least 95% as accurate as the original signature. This table shows the type of forgery that has been explained earlier. So the first row shows a collection of genuine signatures. In the second row, it shows random forgery which has been carried out by a forger. As it can be seen here, the names of the random forgery and the genuine signatures do not match. For the third row, it shows blind forgery, which is blindly generating a signature of a person whom they assume their signature is based on their name. As for the last row, it is skilled forgery. Skilled forgery shows a person who has had ample of practice over the years of easily copying a signature and making sure that the signature generated by them has close resemblance to the genuine signatures. The forger's techniques is an attempt to fraudulently reproduce a particular handwriting, such as a given person's signature, so that the forger can resort to one or a few of the methods. Naming a few methods are tracing or trace over methods, simulated or also known as freehand method, practiced forgery, and also blind forgery. The trace over method is one of the two methods of tracing. Tracing is amateurish means of forging a signature, usually something very brief by text if it is by tracing. Typically, one or two means is employed, which is the trace over method and also the light box method. For the trace over method, the obvious drawbacks of such an approach is that it tends to leave evidence. It is difficult to follow the outline of the signature exactly. So traces of the indentions or the carbon or graphite outline may show in the final pen work. Although the graphite traces may be erased, the erasure itself may be detected. Using this method, uncharacteristically blunt beginnings and also the ending strokes can be observed. This is because the signature is being traced over. There is no swift motion of the pen movement when it comes to forging the signature, and there is also an unnatural pen pressure as the pen isn't in a swiftly uh, motion when it comes to forging the signature. The next method for tracing is the light box method. Original signature is placed underneath the sheet being used for the forgery, and backlighting is employed to render the writing visible through the overlying paper. The tracing may thus be accomplished without leaving any telltale traces on the forged document. However, the results will usually have a labored appearance or at least the lack of smooth quality of natural penmanship. As well, even with very thin paper and strong lighting, some of the fine detail of the writing will be inevitably lost. With the second method of light box, we can either use light box or natural light source from the window. As shown in the slide above, picture 1.1 shows a trace over method where a piece of paper is being placed on top of the signature so that it can be traced, while in picture 1.2 shows a piece of paper being placed on top of a light box so that it can be easily traced, and then close to none of the small features of the signatures will be missed out. The next type of forgery is known as simulated forgery, or also known as freehand method. Far superior to tracing, it is the freehand technique of producing forgeries, at least in theory. A good tracing may still be better than an inaptly drawn one. This technique, common to forge endorsements on stolen checks, is often resorted to when the back check passer has no specimen of the payee's signature for copying. He or she simply writes the name in a signature-like fashion, utilizing his or her own handwriting or perhaps a disguised hand, and attempts to pass the check before its obvious fakery is detected. Simulated forgery is divided into two parts: slow copied forgery and also practiced forgery. Slow copied forgery is somewhat more successful. The slow copied forgery is produced of a manner similar to tracing and therefore has similar poor qualities. For example, an unnaturally even pen pressure and the tremulous strokes that betray the fact that it was drawn rather than written. Close inspection may also reveal suspicious pen lifts that are absent from the subject's genuine signature. These are typical of a forgery in which the forger frequently pauses to check his work in progress. The second part is practiced forgery. Much more successful is the practiced freehand forgery. A talented artist or calligrapher who has taken the time to practice a given signature may eventually learn to sign a name or, with considerable more difficulty, imitate a handwriting that is remarkably similar to the targeted writing that is comparatively smoothly and freely written. Most of the time, frauds are the ones who are able to produce such fine and smooth handwriting as they have taken and spent a lot of time practicing. Picture 1.3 above shows a very smoothly forged Benjamin Franklin signature which was done by Joseph Cossé. As you can see, it is smoothly penned and it is also lacking the obvious signs of forgery, almost making it seem promisingly authentic. Next is blind forgery, one of the most common and probably easiest to detect for a layperson is this type of forgery, where the forger uses his or her own handwriting. The forger does not even try to copy the original signature and may not even know what the signature looks like because they have not had a reference. This is usually the case in petition fraud and anonymous harassing subscriptions, as well as many other civil and criminal cases. Investigators have the highest success rate in identifying this type of forger. As it is shown above, picture 1.4 shows one authentic signature, which is on the left side, and another blindly forged signature, which is on the right side. From this, it can be observed and also deduced that the forger had not had any previous glances at the original signature of said person and decided to generate a signature from his or her own handwriting. Another important aspect under signature forgery is the forger's tremor. While tremor may naturally occur in handwriting as a result of old age, illness, or lack of skill in writing, it is also symptomatic of forgery, either the traced or the slowly drawn variety. Determining that shaky handwriting is the result of forger's tremor is accomplished in either or both of two ways. The first is by elimination process. For example, in this case of the photograph of Robert E. Lee that bore a question, tremulous signature of Lee's writing skill was a given, and research showed that his handwriting remained vigorous until his death. Obviously, the inscription on the photo, which will be shown after a video, was written by someone other than Robert E. Lee after his death. The second way is the internal factor. So besides elimination process, the forger's tremors may be deduced from internal factors within the handwriting. For instance, if the overall form of the handwriting was that typical of swiftly and also freely done manner, it would have been observed in figure 1.7, which will be shown soon. But it was the exact opposite of it. The line quality of the signature was observed otherwise as well. The obvious conclusion that would be that the writing was forged. Not only that, tremor combined with other suspicious features such as inconsistent shading because of the irregular pen pressure, which was also present in the Lee part of his signature, and this would be an indicative of forgery. The authentic and also forged signature of Robert E. Lee will be shown after this short video on forgery and signature verification.
Now it's your turn to identify the various forgery signs. Each of the following check endorsements indicates one sign of a forgery. Here's check number 1. What do you notice about this signature? This signature looks fuzzy. If you answered criminal tremor, you're correct. But a word of caution here. Advanced age or illness can also be the reason for tremor or fuzzy signature.
Picture 1.6 shows the forged signature of Robert E. Lee, which is characterized by incorrect shading and also by unmistakable evidence of the forger's tremor. Picture 1.7 shows the original signature of Robert E. Lee, which was retrieved from a signed checked portion which was being retrieved by one of the collectors. In conclusion, to find out the authenticity of the signature in dispute can be done by referring the disputed document either in original or the photocopy along with the other documents where the signature of the person is found. The signature verification forensic test is used to find out if the signature on the document is forged by someone or if it is the original. The signature verification itself is an extensive of the handwriting examination test, and this is helpful in many cases requiring authentication of legal document, bank checks, and many more. To be able to make sure that no one is able to forge our signature, we have to make sure that it is complex enough, maybe containing elements that are not legible or that contains pen stroke that are counterintuitive, to ensure that it is produced fast and fluid.
Usually, something about a forged signature will look odd. Measure the length of both signatures. Bankersonline.com says that a person's signature remains the same length always, even if the handwriting changes. A forged signature may be longer or shorter than the original.